We are now joined live by Sport 360's reporter Matt Monaghan. Matt, just reacting to the news today of Walter Zenga, previous Al Jazeera, Al Ain, Al Nasser, Al Shab.
Yes, correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Coaching the AGL, taking over at Wolves in the English Championship. You ghosted his column previously with Sport 360. You've engaged with him a lot over the years in press conferences and the like, and interviews and doing that column. First of all, what's Big Walt the man like?
Well, I'd say to all the Wolves fans is you need to strap yourself in. It's going to be loud, it's going to be passionate, it's going to be tempestuous, it's going to be a manic time. Walter is an incredibly passionate guy, like I just said. You don't know what he's going to do from 1 second to the next. And for doing his column, it was the same. You could throw topics at him. Some days he'd be really up for it, some days he wouldn't. He's quite happy as well. One of his best mates out here is the Al-Atli manager, Cosmin Alaru. When I was doing the column in 14-15, they were having a bad season. And he'd quite happily stick the boot in. He wouldn't have a problem with that. And then also, the reason he was unemployed and doing the column because he'd left Al Jazeera. And that's where I think the emotional side comes in, because he wasn't really very comfortable talking about Al Jazeera. He'd taken them up to third. He got them into the round of 16 in the AFC Champions League. I think he was, he's hurt by the way he left them, that they ditched him and brought in Eric Gerrits. So, it's going to be a roller coaster time. And
he's a man, as you say there, with a feisty reputation, to say the least. I mean, the championship will be made for him, won't it? I mean, some of the clashes in there we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to absolutely relish it. It's perfect for him. I mean, the guy, he doesn't take a backward step. And that with opposition players, his own players, referees, fans, board members, journalists. I mean, famously out here, I think he had a diplomatic incident in 2012 where he called an Arabic reporter stupid. And he got a big fine, and I think threatened with jail sentence and things like that. So, and the championship is hair him, scare him, it's up and out of him. I think he's going to relish it, and I'm really looking forward to some of the managerial battles and other firebrands like Rotherham, Bloss, Allen, Stubbs, Ipswich, Bosch, McCarthy, who you might know from Italia '90 when Ireland and Italy were against each other. So I think it'll be great.
And having watched his teams previously, how do you think Wolves will now set up under Walter Zenga?
He's a big fan of the 4-5-1. Big man up top, keep it tight at the back, but as a word of warning to any journalists out there, don't call him defensive. He doesn't like that. Even though his teams are defensive and they do struggle to score goals, don't say that, because if you do say that to him, he's going to fire straight back at you.
And he has a history in his managerial career of being quite short-term in his stays at various places, for various reasons as well. Do you think this will be a long-term decision under new ownership, Chinese ownership at Wolves? I mean, is this a long-term decision, or can you see tempers flaring early and Big Walt turning around 6 months later and looking for a new job?
Yeah, not a chance this is lasting very long, I'd imagine. When you look at just last season, he went to Sampdoria at the start of the season. He's the returning hero. He'd done so well for them as a player towards the end of his career. He got sacked, I think, October time, something like that. Club were in 10th. He'd done well, but he hadn't played the political game. He'd fallen out with the chairman. I think he'd been very cold on San Antonio Cassano, so they got rid of him. And to be fair to Zenga, they were 10th when he left, and he finished 15th. Then in November time, he moves to Al Shab, who were bottom of the AGL, one of the statistically the worst performing team in the professional era, finished with the least number of points, and he lasted 3 months there for leaving with mutual consent. And he's always wanted to work in the AGL, and he's turned down jobs before because his wife's very happy here, his family's very happy here. But I think with the Al Shab job, he burned so many bridges. I think he got 4 points in 3 months under him, and he wasn't the same firecracker of a guy while he was there. So this is the conundrum for Wolves. Are they going to get a guy with something to prove, or are they getting a guy who's a bit broken?
Well, hopefully he hasn't lost his mojo.
No, that's the thing. But you'd still go to Al Shab games and press conferences, you get wonderful stories, wonderful lines out of it, because he's just so emotive and he's so lyrical with his words. But he just wasn't the same guy. It definitely was not the same. Maybe it was the setting that he came into a team that were awful, and he might have been hurt, again using that word from the Sampdoria experience, but it wasn't the same guy who, I moved to the UAE in February 2014, and I had a few months with him at Al Jazeera, and he was tremendous entertainment. He was explosive all the time, and it just wasn't the same.
So hopefully the Jazeera Zenga rather than the
Yeah, that's what you hope for. Or you talk about the long-term thing as well. If you look at his very peripatetic career, his stay at Al Nasser from 2011, 2013, that's Al Nasser in the UAE, not Al Nasser in Saudi Arabia, who he'd been with before. He got sacked by them. But Al Nasser, he stayed for 2.5 seasons, I think finished third, finished second, then finished sixth. and that is I think by a distance his longest stay at any job since he started.
And just to finish on something anecdotal, Matt. So, what's your favourite memory of Big Walt out here?
Well, there's two here. One's to do with players and one's to do with me. And it comes from the players. Like, players love him that were under him. You've got some, particularly Al Nassr guys. I mean, last season when he was unemployed, sorry, not last season, 2014-15 when he was unemployed, he'd quite regularly, come to games, just see him in the stands, and he walked up at Al Nassr guy, and at half time when the guys were knocking the ball about, they all spotted him in the stands, and you might notice from looking at Zenga, he's follically challenged, and all the Al Nassr boys were just rubbing like that on the head during the...
Did he take it well?
Yeah, he took it well, he was loving it, he was rubbing it back, loving it. And then also just like, he's a character, and he doesn't have a censor on himself, he just says stuff. You ask him a question, it comes out, and I remember being an Al Jazeera presser in 2014, and the issue of fitness came out for Emirati players, and there was a guy next to him, Khalid Sabeel, who's got very, very little English, and he just started asking the question, and he suddenly broke off and went, "Why am I saying this? I'm speaking to myself." Started hugging Khalid Sabeel, said, "This guy can't understand a word I'm saying." Just turned around, he started smiling at him. Khalid Sabeel didn't have a clue what was going on, he starts laughing. As journalists, we all start laughing, and that's the type of thing, you never ever know what to expect, and that was the best thing, I guess, with being around him.
Well, hopefully it should be an entertaining journey for Zenga anyway, next up in the Championship.
Yeah, and I hope it's a successful one, but you just don't know. Yeah. I mean, with the mix of like these new Chinese owners, Zenga putting there into a new league, into a country he's never worked in, the Chinese owners have never obviously had a club in the UK before. I mean, really, it's an explosive mix, but let's see what comes out of it.
Well, thanks for joining us, Matt, and I'm sure there'll be more to win tomorrow's paper from you.
Oh, definitely,
Zenga.
definitely.
So, yeah. So get that then. Everyone get down to the shop and get Sport 360 tomorrow for Matt's latest on Walt Zenga. Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, guys. See you later.